This is a case that took place in 2016 between Tricia Todd and her ex-husband, Stephen Williams. What happened in this case was Tricia Todd didn't go pick up her child. So the brother called around being concerned. She finally got in touch with the ex-husband of Tricia Todd, and he acted like he was oblivious and he didn't see Miss Todd. So this caused suspicions because the brother was like, this is not like my sister. She would never abandon her child. So what we're going to do is we're going to dive straight into this case after we talk about the sponsor of this video. Because the way that I look at it, right, it's like we need to be in position to help yourself. But the reason why I'm doing this video is because people can be so dubious or devious or however you want to say it. Some people are just some awful, awful people, and that's just the way it is. So without further ado, let's go ahead and share our screen. The sponsor of the video, Surfshock, a comprehensive review of the VPN service. In today's digital age, privacy and security are of utmost importance, with cybercriminals becoming more sophisticated and governments monitor online activity. It's essential to take measures to protect your online identity. One way to do so is by using a virtual private network or VPN service. Among the many VPNs available in the market, Surfshock is one that has been gaining popularity. So, what we're talking about in this case is this. Like I said again, this case started in 2016. Stephen Williams sentenced in death of Tricia Todd. All right, so this is Martin County. Todd David embraced Jack Williams Jr. on Friday afternoon inside the county courthouse after Stephen Williams was sentenced to 35 years in prison for killing his ex-wife, Tricia Todd. I just want to tell him I'm sorry for all the trouble his son had been through, said David Todd, Tricia Todd's father. Circuit Judge Lawrence Mirman decided 31-year-old Stephen Williams was competent to proceed with his Friday afternoon sentencing after defense attorneys requested mental health evaluations while he was a Martin County jail inmate. It wasn't nothing wrong with that bastard. Why always is mental health and when people are doing something, egregious? Now your mental health comes into play. I just don't understand that sometimes. Your mental health wasn't at play before that. So now it's a mental health issue. Oh, got it. I got it now. Stephen Williams was found guilty of second-degree murder, child neglect, and ordered to serve 35 years for both charges as part of a previous plea deal. He was credited for 30 days served. So look, he gave this lady a permanent deceased sentence, but he get to live his days out in jail. How does that work? I wonder. No, I don't want to wonder. Let me take that back. I don't want to wonder. I don't even want to be in his shoes. It's just stupid to me. All right, so Stephen Williams was found guilty of second-degree murder and child neglect, ordered to serve 35 years, credit 130 days. The state prosecution also asked for more than $67,000 paid to the Martin County Sheriff's Office to cover the cost of the investigation. Stephen Williams declined to speak before he was sentenced. Tricia Todd was 30, was last seen alive on April 26. Sheriff officials spent days searching for her. Stephen Williams confessed May 24th to killing her. All right. Attorneys agreed to plea deals so Stephen Williams would show sheriff's officials where to find Tricia Todd's body. He took them to an area in the John C. and Marina Jones Hungryland Wildlife and Environmental Area in Martin and Palm Beach counties, where they dug up a container filled with acid and her partial remains. So he was a real bastard, what he did, right? Mirman stressed the importance of the plea deal and how officials never would have been able to get all of the facts of the case without it. He said it was a bold action. The sentences was attended by Tricia Todd's family members, Stephen Williams' family members, and officials from the sheriff's office, including Sheriff William Snyder. All right, so now that that's out the way, let's go ahead and dive in and talk about what actually took place in this case, right? Let's talk about what took place. This guy was out his French toast mind. That's one thing we can say in this case. He was out his French toast mind. So let's go ahead and play.
Breaking developments in the murder of Tricia Todd, which may shed light on how she died and the troubled relationship she had with her ex-husband.
Steve Williams is in jail after authorities say he confessed to killing the Hope Sound woman. News Channel 5's Alyssa Hyman's live with more on this breaking development. Alyssa.
Well, just in the last half hour, our partners at the Palm Beach Post are reporting some major developments, reporting on how Tricia Todd apparently was killed. Reporting at the Post that they're saying that Stephen Williams told detectives that he pushed Tricia Todd during an argument, that she hit her head, and that he allegedly dumped the body on a dirt road. Again, all of this information just developing now, coming from our partners at the Palm Beach Post. They're telling us that they got it from an arrest report. We also have some more information from that arrest report right here. In this arrest report released today, chilling words from Stephen Williams' mother, claiming to deputies that her son despised his ex-wife and that once said this, Tricia can poof, disappear. The arrest report also outlines the series of surveillance videos that appears to show Tricia Todd's car going in and out of the Poinciana Gardens area where Williams was apparently staying here in Hope Sound. Also in the report, new details about the investigation indicating that a person matching Stephen Williams' description was seen walking towards the Poinciana Gardens area just before 5 a.m. on the morning of her disappearance. Meanwhile, the biggest piece of evidence still missing, Tricia Todd's body. But deputies and volunteers say they aren't giving up.
And knowing that there's a little girl behind that is not going to have any closure to knowing to where her mom is today, that, you know, it takes a life toll.
And I just got a copy of that unredacted arrest report in my hands right now. I'm going to pour over that arrest report, figure out what it says. It should reveal a lot more details that we're going to continue to tell you live at 6. That is the very latest from Hope Sound. Alyssa Hyman, WPTV News Channel 5.
Nearly 1 month later, an arrest is made in the disappearance of Tricia Todd. Her ex-husband is now charged with her murder.
Obviously very disappointed that Tricia's not coming home alive.
And we're live right now with deputies as they search for Tricia Todd's body.
I'm tracking a tropical disturbance that could become our next named storm.
First, our top story, an arrest, as you heard, in the disappearance of that Hope Sound mom, Tricia Todd's ex-husband, charged with her murder.
Right now, the sheriff's office is focusing in on an area of the Treasure Coast for her body. Kelly Dunn begins our team coverage from their command post in Martin County. Kelly?
That's right, Ashley and Michael. We are right off of Bridge Road, just west of I-95, where the sheriff's office has set up its command post. This is where the search teams are being dispatched. There are volunteer search teams. There are search teams made up of Martin County Sheriff's deputies. Sadly, they are on a search for remains of Tricia Todd. It was learned today that indeed she will never be coming home. She was murdered and her body was dumped. Here are the pictures that so many of you shared of Tricia on social media nearly a month ago, trying to help find her and bring her home. She's a nurse, a mom of a toddler, only 30 years old, Tricia Todd was. This now will take a look at her ex-husband. Stephen Williams is a member of the U.S. Air Force. He is now in jail, charged with her murder. He appeared today in Martin County Court and is officially charged with second-degree murder and child neglect. It has been, as I said, almost a month since this nightmare began for Tricia's family. She was last seen at a public supermarket along Bridge Road in Hope Sound back on April 26th. She was reported missing the very next day when she failed to pick up her daughter, a 2-year-old, who was in the care of her ex-husband who was visiting at that time. Her car was found. The keys were inside, her wallet and her phone were missing. It was May 3rd when Martin County Sheriff's Office investigators went to Raleigh, North Carolina to re-interview the ex-husband, Stephen Williams, who was indeed the last known person to have seen her alive. He did take a polygraph willingly, which did not at that time directly, we're told, tie him to the disappearance, but the investigation went on, as did the search, which was exhaustive, about 2 weeks in length, by air, by land. It was finally called off by the sheriff's office, who said that they would then continue the investigation. There were a number of interviews, and it led up to the confession by Stephen Williams and his arrest last night and the charge of second-degree murder. Sheriff Snyder this morning, when he held a news conference, expressed some frustration that Williams had not led them to where he disposed of the body. Let's listen in to Sheriff Snyder today.
We will continue doing everything we can and everything in our power to find Tricia's remains. That is now the central and focal point of all our efforts and of the Sheriff's Office.
Our Alyssa Hyman has been out covering the search efforts several weeks ago and indeed out today with some of the search teams. Let's check in with Alyssa, who also has reaction from the Tricia Todd's family on the news today of the arrest. Alyssa?
Kelly, this is now the staging area in the search for Tricia Todd's body. Deputies now concentrating on areas west of I-95. Meanwhile, the group DEME already has several volunteers on the ground too. The active search for Tricia Todd is back on after this major break in the case. The sheriff's office has brought the command post back out, setting it up now just west of I-95 along Bridge Road. This is now the heart of the recently expanded search, an area estimated of a 15-mile radius. Despite Stephen Williams' confession, deputies say he did not tell them where he left Tricia Todd's body. Meanwhile, deputies and those dedicated volunteers are trying to cover as much ground as possible on foot and ATVs.
We have a huge heart and we care about each other, and we care about Tricia and we care about her family, and we want to bring her home.
And deputies say they will be out searching tonight until it gets dark, and they say they will be back out here tomorrow. Kelly, back to you.
Alyssa, thank you very much. So who is Stephen Williams? As we said, a member of the U.S. Air Force stationed in Raleigh, North Carolina. Our Katie Lagrone, Contact 5 investigator, has been digging into his background to tell us more about him. She's also been speaking to the military and learning more about his marriage to Tricia Todd. Let's go to Katie back in the studio.
Kelly, Stephen Williams and Tricia Todd, married in 2005, were separated in 2015. Their divorce finalized 1 year to the day later in February of this year. All the while, Williams has worked his way up in the U.S. Air Force, most recently holding the title instructor. Williams, based at Seymour Air Force Base in Goldsboro, North Carolina, teaches other airmen how to maintain the F-15E Strike Eagle, which is a kind of fighter jet. Williams, who first enlisted in the military back in 2003, is tasked with making sure these fighter jets are ready to hit the sky at a moment's notice. At this point, the Air Force tells us he has not been the subject of any military justice actions. The military also confirming to us tonight that they are cooperating fully with local authorities and will determine his military future based on, in part, on the outcome of this investigation and any legal actions he will face. Katie Lagrone, WPTV News Channel 5.
Katie, thank you. Sadly, today we learned during that news conference this morning with the sheriff that there was someone else there the night Tricia Todd was killed. We talked to our legal expert, Michelle Suskauer, to get her take on how that will impact the case going forward. And we'll have that and much more team coverage for you coming up on News Channel 5 at 5:30. For now,
Williams showed very little emotion as he walked inside a Martin County courtroom Friday morning. Prosecutors were there to ask for a continuance. They want to make sure the defendant complied with his plea agreement. They say a U.S. military laboratory is helping to determine if they have all of the remains belonging to Tricia Todd.
They have tools and techniques at their disposal where they feel confident that they're going to be able to give us some opinion, one way or the other.
But the defense says his client already complied regardless of any other outcome. The judge ruled in the state's favor and gave them extra time to work on the case. We caught up with Todd's father as he left the courtroom.
I feel good. I have a really good prosecutor and a good judge. He's one of the best judges in the county.
Williams confessed to killing his ex-wife. He then led detectives to her remains in exchange for a plea deal. Before Williams left the courtroom Friday, he asked to be waived from any future court hearings.
What does that tell you about him? I mean, you know this guy now. Everybody knows this guy. They know what he did. They know who he is. And this is just apparently his last ditch effort at hurting this family.
Well, the sentencing date was scheduled for next Friday, but that has since been canceled. So the next court date is set to take place on September 30th. In Stewart.
We're here. Okay, where? I just passed it about 5 seconds ago. We're here. You can just park here.
Other side.
All right, you have to try to truck it, okay? And when we get there, I need you to place it where she's at, so we have some type of marker, so we don't keep it here on that, okay? All right, come on. Place the flag is where. Okay, and about how far down are we going?
It's not much off the surface, 2.5 feet.
Okay, it's about 2.5 feet down. Okay, we have to put the container.
Yeah, it's going to be a plastic barrel.
Plastic barrel, okay. And exactly what type of chemical fluid are we talking about for safety?
It's like a pool chemical. I forget the exact name of it, but it's something that'll.
Is it some sort of an acid?
Yeah.
Sulfuric acid or hydrochloric?
Hydrochloric. Yeah.
He's
not
hydrochloric acid. Okay.
Yeah.
All right, so we're going to go down about 2 feet, and then we're going to have the barrel there.
Yes.
Okay.
It's a storage bin as a lid.
Storage bin. Okay. Okay. Anything else?
Obviously we're going to do some
Yes.
hazmat.
Absolutely. Nita, are you good? Okay. Okay. And there's no way it could be any back further, or you're certain this is it here?
This would be it.
Okay.
Let's get it now. It's not really part of the agreement, so let's just get this and
Are we looking for anything else? All right, Stephen, we're going to go get you in the car, okay?
He's going to be behind bars for 35 years for this horrific murder of his ex-wife, Tricia Todd. And some say, including the judge, that it's not nearly enough for what he did. But Stephen Williams was found competent, so he will be behind bars for all of that time. He is a man that detectives call a monster. Stephen Williams said in his sentencing hearing with no emotion on his face at all. He'd already confessed to killing his missing ex-wife, Tricia Todd, in April, and in exchange for a 35-year plea deal, led detectives to her body, which they were horrified to discover was dismembered, buried in a barrel of acid in a remote preserve. Williams hadn't told them that part.
My opinion of Stephen Williams is that he was a cold-blooded murderer, that the crime was despicable, that what he did was unimaginable.
However horrific, Todd's father, David, spoke in court and did not tell the judge anything about his only daughter and his loss, instead addressing Williams directly.
Stephen, I thank God that I can talk to you one time here.
Todd saying he has totally forgiven his former son-in-law, and instead of praying for his daughter, who he says no longer needs prayers, is praying each night for the man who killed her.
He's the fourth person. When I come to Tricia's name, because I just kind of roll them down automatically, Wesley, Kendall, Tricia, and then Tricia's husband, Stephen.
The judge said, while Williams deserves a much harsher sentence, he praised prosecutors for taking bold action, making the plea deal and solving a murder that might never have been solved. Sheriff Snyder agrees everyone did the best they could, but says Williams' cold-blooded actions can never be rectified.
He left behind a daughter who will never know her mother. He left behind a daughter who will now not know her father. And he left an entire family who've lost a sister. There's no putting the pieces back together in this case. There's no way to put it all back right. And the system has worked, and we have collectively done the best we could.
And that is the end. Of course, he can appeal. He does have 35 years now for the murder, plus 5 years to run at the same time for child neglect against their 3-year-old daughter. As well, he has to pay $67,000 out of his estate to the sheriff's office for all the costs of this special investigation. And the Air Force is also investigating. They could tack on additional years. Live in Stewart, I'm Terry.
For the family of Tricia Todd, the Hobe Sound mom, killed by her ex-husband. Stephen Williams will now spend the next 35 years behind bars. The Now's Jason Hackett was in the Martin County courtroom today as Williams learned his fate. Jason?
Shannon, the judge sentenced Williams to 35 years in prison for second-degree murder, 5 years for child neglect. They say that when he killed Todd, he left and buried her body, leaving their child at home. Now, both of those sentences are set to run concurrently. Now, before that sentence was handed down in court today, members of Tricia Todd's family addressed the courtroom.
Stephen, I pray that God will touch your heart and you'll become a new creature. Every one of us in this room is going to die and go to hell if they don't give the life of Jesus Christ. So we're all going to be in the same boat, except for the blood of Jesus Christ.
Now, Williams sat stoically in the courtroom as both Tricia's father and brother addressed Stephen Williams and the judge. The Hobe Sound mother was last seen alive on April 26th. For weeks, family and volunteers spent countless hours searching for Tricia. Then on May 24th, Williams confessed to the murder and in a plea deal agreed to lead investigators to her body, dumped in a wildlife preserve in a container filled with acid. That plea deal was up for dispute initially, as investigators believe Williams didn't lead them to Tricia's entire body. However, Sheriff Snyder told me today that after some lab testing, they do believe that all of her remains were in that container. Now, after the sentence, David Todd, Tricia's father, spoke about his daughter's memory with a message of faith and forgiveness.
The thing is, I'm really thankful because We had Tricia for 30 years. You have to have a larger framework of gratefulness. You can't just focus on what you lost. You got to focus on what God already gave you.
Now, coming up at 5, more reaction from Tricia's family. In Stewart, Jason Hack.
So I definitely want to put all of that together, because I think even though this trial was roughly the horrific incident was 7 years ago, and the trial roughly was, I believe, 4 years ago. The family has a degree of closure, but this guy's Stephen Williams is one of the most heinous. He did one of the most heinous crimes ever. That's how I want to say it. But anyways, this is Antonio, Team Tiggio. Please like, comment, subscribe, as we'll be coming to you with more videos in the future. And once again, we will see you in the next video.